The All Dress Podcast with Conor McKenna, Eric Macramella, and Shaun Starr starts now.
Welcome to a new episode of All Dressed, where we're hoping to have not just a strong 10 minutes to start, but to carry that over all the way through the episode. I'm Conor McKenna, Eric Macramella, Shaun Starr are here. Let's dive right in on Game 1, Montreal, Vegas in the first round. Is that a Max Pacioretty bobblehead?
Yeah, so
wow.
I took my sons to the sports store. It's owned by Canadian Tire. It's closing in Ottawa. Stuff like baseball cleats were like $12, Insanity, like Under Armour baseball cleats. And my son Nicholas really wanted this doll, and it's a Max Pacioretty doll. And I just thought the timing of this purchase, which is over the weekend, was perhaps potentially and prophetically disappointing, and I guess it sort of was. But Max is back in the house, kids. He's back in the house.
Does he go in the corners?
No, he's more of a perimeter type of doll. Likes to sit on the outside of the bed, the edge of the bed. But he seems to be quite effective on the edge. And I did have to remove the stanchion from Nikki's bedroom as well.
Maybe send this to him. Maybe he'll be pouty for game 2.
Who had a better Game 1, Pacioretty or Suzuki?
Oh, good question.
Tough one.
Tough
maybe
one.
Suzuki.
You know what I mean. I guess it's to me, it's sort of a bit of a push. I mean, a lot of the success of the fours on both sides were predicated on how great that D was moving the puck and positioning. But Pacioretty seemed effective. Made a really nice pass to Stone, and Stone would have scored, but for Carey Price doing what Carey does.
He's great.
Yeah.
Ooh.
What did you guys think about
Carey
the crowd?
Price.
You know, because I went to a game in Vegas a few years ago, and it was the most fun. I've been to a lot of hockey rinks. They tend to be kind of boring. They're all like bars of soap. They're all the same. I went to Vegas. It was an absolute party. The best way I can describe it is when they play music in the arenas and people dance in Vegas, when they stop playing the music, people are still dancing. It was a ton of fun to go watch a game there. It's a real party, and people in Vegas treat that team like their own because it's organic to the area as opposed to the Raiders that moved. That fan base, I've talked to a lot of them when I've been down to Vegas, and they love that team, and it shows, man.
And you know what? They don't have the baggage that a lot of fan bases have either, right? They've had nothing but success since they started. So a lot of visiting fans, it's something I've heard from visiting fans, go in there and it's good vibes. Everybody's really nice. Welcome to Vegas. Glad you're here. Right. That's not the kind of ridiculous animosity that you see with other fan bases. It's an amazing thing for the NHL. You know, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here or anything, but imagine with another expansion draft happening this summer, the fact that they're having sustained success, that they're 3 wins away from a Stanley Cup final, what kind of a buzz that creates for Seattle. It's pretty cool. And you're right about the destination thing. Come on, how many barns in the NHL today are you watching a game and saying, you know what, I really would love to get down there? Or even how many times in the last 20 years did you see a game in Colorado and you were like, oh man, I'd really love to see a game in Colorado? Nah, not really. Vegas has a buzz. It has a wow factor that I don't think any other building in the NFL has.
Shaun, we should do this podcast next season live from Vegas.
Yeah, or Nashville would be my next city that I would that I'd give a little love to, especially for a playoff game to beat up some cars with a sledgehammer outside the Bridgestone Arena there in right off Main Street in Nashville. But yeah, like Columbus, I have no desire to hear that stupid cannon. I never want to be there. Montreal is the best building in the world for the playoffs. I've been there and done that. I don't want to go to Boston. I don't want to go to Toronto. I've been to Ottawa. I don't need to ever do that ever again. And Vegas is definitely on the bucket list. I hope to see at least one game just to be able to be there, right? Just to be able to be there and it's like feel the energy.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say Nashville is a good call too. They do have that other stuff besides the game to do, right? Go eat some barbecue or go to a restaurant after, party on Broadway and that sort of thing. Where, Toronto, for example, Toronto, bars close at midnight. Come on down, everybody. It's not the same thing.
Hockey is different, right? I mean, hockey, when it comes to arenas, the arena itself typically is not the attraction, compared to baseball. You go to Wrigley, an amazing experience. You go to Fenway, an amazing experience. So the city is so vital when it comes to the NHL, attracting people insofar as a destination goes, except for Vegas, where that arena is a lot of fun. But of course, the city is a terrific city to go to just for a few days, but not longer than that, because as you know, Vegas has no soul.
The Canadians looked like they had taken the soul out of that building for the first 10 minutes of that game. Couldn't convert it into a goal, which does feel like a little bit of a same old story, not from this run that they've been on, but from this team going back a couple of years now. I guess I'm curious if you guys are more, Eric, I'll start with you. Are you more pleased with how good they looked for the first 10 minutes, or unimpressed with how they looked for the rest of the game afterwards?
I was pleasantly surprised by how good the Habs looked in the first 10 minutes, but what we saw for the better part of the second half of that game was the Vegas team. I think that we expected a team that is well coached, really good structure, heavy neutral zone play, shut down those lanes to the neutral zone. The Canadians couldn't really generate any speed through the neutral zone. It's a team that is impressive to watch with no obvious flaws, and their decor, as we talked about last podcast, is sort of what distinguishes or separates Vegas from the Canadians. This decor can move the puck. They've got some puck moving defensemen. They're offensively minded. They can score goals. And yesterday, Shaun, they scored 3 of those 4 goals. So while I was tickled pink for the first 10 minutes, the Canadians couldn't finish, which was an issue. They have a chance to beat this team, I guess. But man, Vegas looked impressive, Shaun.
They did. They're heavy. They're fast. They're deep. The third line was the best line going for them yesterday, right? So there's a little bit of a positive that maybe, the Canadians did a good job against the top 6. And you talk about the 3 goals they got. The defensemen also outshot the Canadians 18 love in game 1, right? Which is an eye-popping kind of number. But I guess to answer Conor's question directly, I'm going to go with the first 10 minutes because I thought they were going to win. I thought they were going to win last night. They were massive underdogs. They were like plus 225 on the money line to win game 1 in Vegas, right? Which is a big time upset. And I love the way they started. Like, they checked boxes that I wanted to see, because that's what it ultimately comes down to, Conor. It comes down to, what did I think versus what actually took place in reality. And what I wanted to see was a team that was ferocious. I wanted to see a team that was aggressive. And I wanted to see a team that said, hey, we're not the small little guys everyone stereotypes us as being. So when I saw Gallagher, when I saw Perry and Pacioretty, when I saw Romanov run over Pietrangelo, I'm like, check, check, check. I wanted to see that. Marc-Andre Fleury's a hell of a goalie. So what? You didn't score on him. You got to be better in game 2. You got to get better in game 2. And Conor, the one thing that jumps out to me is, if game 2 goes like game 1 went, you have to make a change immediately. You can't have a carbon copy of the Toronto series, go down 3-1 or something like that, and hope on a prayer that you're going to be able to come back. Dominic Ducharme's going to have to react immediately if things don't go their way on Wednesday night in game 2.
How do you mean? What would you like to see? What sort of reaction?
I'm glad you asked. Thomas Tatar is my answer. Whether it's, the guy that's been offended, let's put it that way, because he's been made a non-service member of the Montreal Canadiens, and it's to stick it to Vegas. I don't know, Eric, if that's something that exists in the real world, where you can motivate an athlete who's been a scratch. And Arturi Lehkonen, fine player, tough as they come, difficult to play against. But Eric, you need goals, and they couldn't solve Marc-Andre Fleury all but one time, and that came on a power play. So they need goals.
But Shaun,
and you've got a guy with 20 goals there.
Shaun, I think the reason the Canadians didn't score is we tend to look at forwards as distinct and separate from the decor. They work together. Games flow that way. And the Canadians had a lot of trouble getting the puck out with possession. But even when they did, they had trouble generating speed through the neutral zone. Look, the Canadians lost yesterday. The Vegas looked impressive, but the Canadians, 3 of those goals were the result of defensive breakdowns. Gustafsson didn't look good. Kulak didn't look good. The Canadians can fix this and figure out a way to adjust to the night. So I don't think that this series is by any means over. I think Canadians can win the next game.
But my point being that you can't sit on your hands. You can't have it go the way it went in Toronto, thinking that that's how it's going to be. My point being that if it doesn't come out on their end on Wednesday night, you can't sit there and go into Friday night, Connor, game 3 with the same lineup. You have to do something to give this team a little bit of a charge. And for me, I think that's putting in a guy who's known to score goals and who's been sitting on the sidelines waiting for his chance.
Guy who's also been known to fade away and not be at his best at this time of the year, though, too, right? Examples exist with both teams that are playing in this series. Hey, look, Jeff Petrie is obviously the X factor in this conversation. When I think about what went wrong for the Canadians in this game, and Eric's talk about defensive breakdowns, it begins and ends with their best defenseman wasn't playing. And it's painfully obvious when he's not there, because not only are they struggling, the various guys, right? Kulak's blowing a coverage on the third goal. Sherrod is in a fit of panic, icing a puck that he should not be icing to create the situation that leads to that first goal. And Sherrod putting that puck over the glass, another one. That's... Look, I don't know if I'm not saying necessarily those things don't happen if Petrie's there, but he provides a level of stability that allows everybody else to be in a little bit more of a comfort zone. And missing him, and then there's the other side of it, and it's moving the puck out of the defensive zone. It's moving the puck through the neutral zone. He's their best defenseman at doing that as well, something that they really, really struggled with in this game. So when we talk about adjustments, this is a tough decision for Dominic Ducharme, maybe a tough decision for the Canadians medical staff as well, right? Is it better to say we're going to flip a coin on what happens in game 2 and hope that we can get Jeff Petrie back at 75-80% for game 3? Or is it, you know what, Petrie at 50% is better than what we had at game 1. We got to get him out there on Wednesday night. That's going to be something to keep a really, really strong eye on. And how he looks once he gets back in is going to tell a lot, because guys, based on yesterday, I'm not all doom and gloom. Although I do feel like some of my fears were realized in watching this game. I do think that the Canadians they don't have a hope of winning this series unless Jeff Petrie is involved.
Yeah, I agree. And, when you have him in the lineup, your other D end up playing the minutes that they should be playing, particularly against a team like Vegas. That matters. It's an open question on Gustafsson if the reward is worth the risk. When you do the risk reward assessment, you ask yourself, is he the kind of player that ultimately gives you a better chance to win? Yeah, he's got some nice moments on offense, but he is now committed in these playoffs 2 critical turnovers. And on top of that, screen carry Price yesterday on the first goal. He's a liability out there. I'm a lawyer. I see liability all the time. I recognize it when I see it. Gustafsson is a liability. The issue is what's the alternative? Is it Ouellet? Do you put someone else in there, or do you trim back his minutes? He played 13 minutes yesterday. That was probably 7 or 8 minutes too many. So, Shaun, I don't know what you do, but I do agree with Conor that, sort of what he was suggesting about Ducharme can make those adjustments. He made adjustments between game 4 and game 5 against the Leafs, and it worked. And this, I think, is less about necessarily personnel and more about adjustments. You can replace a couple of guys, but Ducharme has got to find a way to break that Vegas nut through the neutral zone, because it was very effective.
Come on, guys. I mean, this is what happens when you have too many guys that play the same way, bring the same style, bring the same jam, right? I mean, there's no contrast in texture. Once you move away from Brett Kulak, who's a 5th or 6th defenseman on this team, not a 3rd or 4th defenseman, and you don't have Jeff Petrie here, right? Shea Weber's playing with one arm, one hand, and it's a testament to this team's depth that they're missing a guy like John Merrill. They're missing a guy like John Merrill. And right, exactly. And I have the same reaction. You talk about, like, what are you going to do if Gustafsson, doesn't shine in practice today, or the coach just looks at him and says, you know what, he's just not a fit. Xavier Ouellet. I mean, I don't think that's a credible option, Connor. I mean, I saw a guy who is in Gustafsson, a defensive liability. You saw it in Winnipeg. You saw it in game 1. But I think you're at this dance. This is who you're with. And I don't think you're leaving them there at this point.
But by the same token, this is why the coaches make the big bucks, is because of he should be and hopefully will be able to weigh this properly, because let's not also forget the reason that Gustafsson is there is the power play. How good did the power play look when they scored the only goal they got in this game? Who was out there in the middle of it? Gustafsson, right? I mean, I don't think we can ignore it. What did they score? 6 power play goals against the Jets. They got another one last night. this is their best path to scoring goals, right? And if you take Gustafsson out of that mix, do you lose dangerous power play? Is it just gone completely? I don't know. I can't say for sure. But how do you balance that with having a guy who it feels like 12 or 13 minutes might be twice as many minutes as he should be playing? That's a difficult one, but that's why you're an NHL head coach, right? You hopefully are able to figure that out and piece that puzzle together.
The wrong guy on the blue line, Conor, got the most ice time of all the defensemen yesterday. Mr. Chuck, Ben Chirati, who got more minutes than any other defenseman. It's hard to imagine a scenario in which Jeff Petrie doesn't play tomorrow and Gustafsson's numbers get chopped down, and you're going to distribute those minutes with three defensemen? With Shea Weber already hurt, and you're going to give Sherratt more, and then you're going to obviously give Edmondson the rest because it's not going to go to anybody else. So, here's an opportunity where I feel a little bit for Dominic Ducharme, because I don't know how many real credible options he has to kind of tinker with.
Yeah, he doesn't have a long way of options, but if I'm going to be positive just for a moment, I have to say that the way that you beat Fleury, the way we thought you could beat Fleury going into this series was on rebounds, the second and third rebound. While the Canadians couldn't really bury those, I was left feeling optimistic. Going back to your initial question, Conor, I'm optimistic because the Canadians do score a lot of garbage goals and Fleury gives up those rebounds. And I think there's an opportunity here to capitalize on those rebounds. It's going to require the D to kind of pitch in a little bit, but I think the Canadians, Conor, have the right personnel in Perry and Gallagher and Lehkonen to kind of score some of those garbage goals that they need to score.
And I think we saw a couple of instances in that game where if a guy is able to get a stick on one in front of the net, that it's in the back, and maybe we're having a different conversation today. So I think that's a good point. That's where they started to have success against Toronto in those last three games, was that type of thing, just crash bang. And I think Fleury, and to compare him to Jack Campbell would be, a little bit unfair to Fleury. They do have in common the fact that they can be a little bit of an adventure when pucks get in there down low, that they sometimes have a little bit of trouble covering it up. And that old thing of a goalie who sort of will look behind him to make sure the puck's not there. And oftentimes it isn't, especially early in this game and the Canadians know this. You saw they're going in there and they're whacking at it. They're trying to knock it loose, and sometimes it's loose already. There's something to that. Certainly Fleury does not look superhuman, and I think that's really, really encouraging. For the Tatar thing, Shaun, if you want Tatar in there, and I can buy into that, where do you want to see him? Do you want to see him? I mean, I'm thinking
back on the first line for Lehkonen, Conor.
Really,
that's the guy. Yeah, and it's just, and it's not a slight against Lehkonen. I love the way he's played in the playoffs.
You take Lehkonen out of the lineup?
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, I strongly disagree. Lehkonen for me has been one of their best forwards.
Agreed.
I love what he brings. I'd take Paul Byron out. I'd put Tatar in that spot on that line. See if he can get something going with Kotkaniemi, and see if he can spark something. And Josh Anderson too, who right now, Anderson, he had that one rush in on the net there in the first period. It was an encouraging moment. He went around to D, but we're talking about a guy who's got one goal in his last 30 games now or something like that. That's the line for me that they're going to need to spark, and guys that we've seen them have success before. That's the one I see being in need of a change.
Well, the other part of there is Armia's role in the fourth line, right, with Eric Stahl and Corey Perry. And I don't know if Armia, Eric, if you're comfortable with the proposition of him maybe moving back up the lineup. He has scored big goals. He has scored timely goals.
With who though? Would you put him with Kotkaniemi? Is that what you're saying? On the right side?
I want to, but what are you going to do with Anderson? You're not moving it. You can't move Anderson. Like my gut feel on that is I already think his confidence is wavering. He hasn't scored since game one against Toronto, right? He was really a non-factor against Winnipeg. I think he went 3 games or 2 games, Eric, without a shot on goal in 4 games against the Jets. This guy's a power forward. That should never be a stat line attributed to Josh Anderson's game in a playoff. But I want to be sensitive. I kind of want to be sensitive with where he's at, and I want to make him feel good. I guess what I'm telling you is that's the type of coach I would be. I'd be Jacques Demers, pat you on the back, make you feel good.
The thing is I really like that line of Armia, Stalin, Perry. It's an effective line. They have really good chemistry. They
were bad last
size,
night, though. Eh?
They bring finish and they bring patience. Josh Anderson, sometimes a player just needs to figure it out. He needs to figure this out. I don't know if he's hurt, but it doesn't seem like he is because he's still going full tilt and he's still delivering big checks. But his role is to score some of these goals and to do so in the playoffs. And as Conor said a number of times a couple of years ago, Tampa said they had no answer for Josh Anderson. Well, right now there's an answer, and it's pretty clear that he can be stopped. The other guy, though, that I do want to focus on is Brendan Gallagher. Brendan Gallagher, I checked. I did some in-depth research. He's got 4 playoff goals over the past 27 games. My issue with Brendan Gallagher is that to the visible eye over the past few playoff seasons, he's been a player that hasn't produced consistent or sort of in a way that is consistent with production during the season. I understand it's his size. The playoffs are playing better D, end up being more of a perimeter player, but he still gets to the net. Brendan Gallagher has 4 goals in 27 games in the playoffs. Conor, that is not enough for a guy like him.
That projects, according to my in-the-head math, to 12 goals in an 82-game season. That's certainly not something you want a guy who makes $8 million a season to be giving you, especially when the games matter the most. I think it's a fair point. Look, at the same time, I'm sort of weary of starting a pylon here or any major moves for a team that just is coming off a 7-game win streak for the first time in recent memory, who didn't trail for 447 minutes. And that's why when I am thinking it's an if for me about making a change to the lineup. I don't want to do anything major. This lineup's been working, but if I can change one thing that affects one line, I'll do it. But if we were now talking about moving pieces around that's going to affect 2, 3, 4 different lines, I don't think it's a good idea at this point.
But this was all, if I go back to the point, this was all in my mind that if it isn't a flattering result on Wednesday, you can't sit. You just can't sit there and think that what happened in Toronto can be duplicated in this series against this team. You know what?
I miss the days when the trump card up Dominic Ducharme's sleeve was Cole Caulfield or Jesperi Kotkaniemi or Alexander Romanov.
Can I say something about that? Like that kind of, it rubs me the wrong way that it does, Conor, Eric, create this level of uncertainty in my mind that their original call was to not play them. Okay. No Romanov, no Caulfield, and no Kotkaniemi. That was the original plan. The original plan was to sit the kids. And then you got an injury, and then you had to play one of them, and then you got another injury. Now the defenseman came in, and then Caulfield had 4 points in 9 games, and then he scored on the power play. Just in my mind, their initial read, their initial thought process was, how can we be our best version of ourselves by not having those guys? And they've been instrumental in the 7-game winning streak. And it just gives me pause. That's all I'm saying. Just gives me a little pause.
I think it's fair, Shaun. It's fair because not only do you have to ask yourself, okay, how do we win this series? You also want to position the franchise for success long-term. And that means also exposing your young players to playoff hockey, which results in exponential growth. The one thing I will say, though, is there was an initial concern that Romanov, would have, had his confidence undermined and the Canadians would be, sort of destroying him because they're not playing him and all that kind of stuff. I was so encouraged to hear that the morning that Romanov was told he was playing his first playoff game, he was all smiles. He was smiles on the ice yesterday. That to me speaks to the effective communication style of Ducharme. There are 2 ways to sit somebody. One way that will make them feel less and diminish, another way that will make them feel optimistic about their future. I think Conor, Ducharme is an effective communicator, and we don't see what happens behind the scenes, but it does manifest itself on television. Watch them play. And I've been impressed with the results we've seen insofar as attitude of these players that have been benched.
Yeah, that's true. And, for Shaun, your thing, I know it's not the first time you brought it up, and I think I usually say the same thing is like, but they've been winning, right?
I know. Shut up, Shaun. Right? I get it. I get it, man. I do. I get it.
When they were down 3-1 and guys weren't playing, that's I'm all about that. But geez, it's a 1 game. If they get swept here by Vegas, then I think we can start having those conversations. But I find it's hard to second guess these things when they've been so effective, or at the team has been so effective, whether or not the way they handled these guys has positively or negatively affected them, I don't know, but it's hard to argue with W's. All right, so glass half full going into game 2. That's the feeling here, right, boys?
Yes.
Legitimately.
Yeah, I think the Canadians, they have an opportunity to make adjustments to practice today. There's a way to figure this out. Also, try and avoid those defensive breakdowns. But there is opportunity here for this team, and the Canadians can win game 2. And I'm going to say they will win game 2, 2-1.
Oh, I love that. I like that too. I will also double down. I will go with Eric. And I will say the Canadians will win game 2 as well. I thought they were going to win game 1. I like how they started the hockey game. I am glass half full. I am optimistic. Maybe if you bought into all the hype with the 6 days off between games for the Canadians that, oh my God, here comes this juggernaut Vegas team, unbeatable. They're always in the conference finals. They're battle tested, blah, 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 blah. Nothing about game 1 pointed me in the direction of this is an unbeatable hockey team, and whoever gets them in the next round better be careful because they're getting the Mount Everest of hockey challenges here. I didn't see that at all in game 1.
And the Canadians have earned the benefit of the doubt based on what's happened already here in the playoffs, and it would be disingenuous to suggest otherwise, I think. All right. Another thing I like to do at this time of the year is talk about baseball. Not Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s incredible pursuit of a Triple Crown. Did you see him hit a game-tying home run in the 9th inning last night? And then, of course, the Jays bullpen blew it, and then he hit that one like 450 over the Green Monster. It was a thing of beauty. He's amazing. But let's talk about the dark side of baseball. Cheating. No, I'm not talking about batters juicing up until they're breaking home run records. No, it's the pitchers who are under the microscope now. Eric, spider tack. What do we got? Sunscreen is being used here. Apparently, pitchers are in trouble for doing something they've been doing since the days of since the days of Dizzy Dean. Since the days of give me an old time pitcher. Anybody?
Cy Young.
Whitey Ford.
Cy Young.
So they've been messing with baseballs forever. Now they're making a big deal out of it. Is this the time or the place, Eric? Please, if you can give me an answer here without mentioning the baseball's action problem, I will buy you your next lunch on me.
Baseball has a pace of play issue. There's no doubt about that. I think, you're right that, look, players have been cheating in baseball since the beginning of time. And as Tony Kornheiser said, if you removed all the cheaters from the Baseball Hall of Fame, it'd be the size of a janitorial closet. And he's right. The issue now is baseball is seeing that it's having an adverse or negative impact on pace of play and the watchability of Major League Baseball. And so they feel like the matter is now urgent. The thing I don't understand, though, is you're suspending these players for 10 games with pay. So effectively, it's a paid vacation. So it's odd. And the Astros got away with pretty much nothing insofar as, their punishment related to their sophisticated sign stealing scheme. But I understand why baseball is doing it. But let's be clear about one thing, guys. This is not a new issue. Pitchers have been doctoring baseballs since the birth of Christ.
Yeah, Garrett Cole laid the groundwork. It's like, when I was taught by an old timer, that old timer was taught by another old timer, and all roots back to Walter Night Train Johnson, I'm sure, right? At some point, where the root of this is in Cy Young, I don't know. But there's part of me that strongly believes, I understand from pretending you caught by trapping a ball in the outfield and saying, look, I got it up. There's cheating and then there's steroids, right? But it all falls under the same umbrella. And yet, baseball doctors a ball, then they juice a ball, and then then analytics comes in. There's part of me that truly believes that analytics ruin baseball more than any other scandal, where, whether it's pace of play or guys studying every single habit of every single play, the shift, waiting on every single pitch. To me, it does come down to pace of play, getting runs, making the game exciting. And as I told Conor this morning on the TSN 690 morning show, I'd much rather have a guy with spider tack on his fingers with control of a 99-mile-an-hour fastball than no spider tack and he loses it and drills me in the head.
And as I said on the TSN 690 morning show, if you can't control your 99-mile-per-hour pitch without spider tack, you should not be throwing that pitch. Again, that for me is a bridge too far. And you're not. Don't throw pitches you can't pitch without cheating. I can't emphasize that enough. The shift, I will agree with. I don't know if you make it illegal, it seems kind of crazy. It's also kind of crazy how long it took big league teams to figure out the shift and to employ it effectively. But it is a highly effective thing that has really, really changed the game.
Well, the art of hitting, like lay off and slap your bat, and the barrel will point the ball in the opposite direction of the shift.
Yeah, and these rules, as far as I could see, based on something I saw this morning, the rules that they're enforcing here have essentially been in place and were in place before. They're just going to enforce some rules that were already there when it comes to 10 games off and yada, yada, yada. But when it comes to Garrett Cole, or when it comes to any other pitcher, it always comes back to the same thing for me here. And this is the same thing as the steroid scandal back in the day. Guys are getting paid. Garrett Cole got the biggest contract in baseball history based on what he was doing. And I doubt very many people in the know were completely unaware that Garrett Cole was doctoring the baseball at least a little bit. And as long as guys are still getting $300, $400 million contracts, or guys, I mean, 50, 60, $70 million contracts, whatever it is, for cheating, then the ultimate incentive at a 10-game paid suspension, I don't think is going to turn the tide the other way here. We're talking about life-changing money, a family, generation-changing money. We're talking about Eric Macramella money here.
Whoa!
It's not going to stop guys, I don't think, from doing this. I think risk reward wise, it's not there.
I mean, the highest paid player in MLB history is Alex Rodriguez. The one thing I'll say about the shift is I was against outlawing the shift before this season. I said, look, I don't like to put in rules that restrict strategy. I think if you're smart and you can take advantage of strategy, you should be allowed to implement that strategy. My views changed this year. Players simply cannot beat the shift. And if they do, they get a single, then they're out at second on the next play on a fielder's choice. Because you're facing this issue, pace of play, there's not a lot of balls in play. Again, this season, a record for fewest balls in play and most minutes with balls in play. I think you got to get rid of the shift the way it is now. 2 players to the right of second, 2 players to the left of second, and no infielder in the outfield. I know, it may seem like a drastic move, but I think these are desperate times and they call for desperate measures. Baseball has got to do something. This is step one with the pitchers, but there's far more they need to do.
Fab Four time.
I wonder what the next cheating scandal is going to be.
The next cheating scandal?
What?
It's a really good question, isn't it? I don't know. I assume it's going to involve the Astros banging something. I don't know. Thinking about Garrett Cole is I expect Garrett Cole is going to be suspended for 10 games because Garrett Cole's at the top of the list. Garrett, excuse me. And so when he is suspended, they're going to take that back to Houston, and that's going to be more fuel for the fire with respect to that World Series win.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah, they can keep talking about that all they want. I mean, it's in the books. At this point, that's not going to change anything.
No takebacks.
Okay. Fab Four this week, or this episode, I should say. Eric proposes our 4 things that we're most looking forward to do once life gets back to normal, or should I say, if life ever gets back to normal.
No.
Sorry. Just saying, variants and whatnot. So who goes first? You want me to go first?
Sure.
All right. Tinder. Just getting back on Tinder. Look
at this guy. Where's your pregnant girlfriend? Is that her screaming in the background?
No, but I was actually a friend of mine. I was hanging out with him yesterday, and he was like, because I deleted Facebook years ago, and I've never looked back. I think Facebook's just the worst thing ever. And he deleted Facebook, and I told him, I was like, listen, you know what's the only reason to have Facebook? Only one. If you're single and you need Tinder, that's it. I don't know if it still works like that, but you used to have Facebook to use Tinder. That was good. I haven't been single for 6 years now, so I got no use for it. Anyway, but in all seriousness, no, not Tinder. Going to the movies. I haven't done that in a really long time. I love going to the movies. One of my favorite things in the whole world, to see these movies. I want to see James Bond in a theater. I love movies in the theater. Number 3, going to a bar or restaurant and watching a sports game. I say this because I'm still not doing that. I haven't done that. I've gone to some bars. To some restaurants. I sit outside, but I do miss that get together with friends, go out for a birthday dinner. It's even better if we can watch a game, that sort of thing. So I'm putting that there. Number 3 is seeing my family. I have a nephew who was born last September, who I still haven't met, who lives in the Toronto area. We have a kid on the way, hopefully in August, and I want my family to be able to meet her. I'd love for people to be able to come for our baby shower in a couple of weeks, although the clock is ticking on that. And number 1 is traveling. I want to be able to get travel again, get on an airplane without feeling like I'm putting the health of myself, my family, and my coworkers at risk. I love traveling. It's my number 1 favorite thing. So that's my top 4.
I think we have a few redundancies, so I'm going to try to be creative and be original. So number 4, Conor, Eric, is a come and go as I please without having to wait, whether it's to go buy an article of clothing or into a store for food, whatever it is. I'm done waiting outside like a schlep. Number 3, not having to fill out any more COVID forms. For instance, every day, Conor and I have been going into the studio since day 1 of this pandemic. And I don't know, Conor, the last 4 months, maybe 5 months, maybe longer, we had to fill out a COVID form that gets sent to our email or a text message every single day. I am done with that. Number 2, I'm looking forward to not having to wear a face mask anymore when I walk in the office floor, or whether I go in a store or whatever. I'm done with that too. And the one redundancy that stayed on my list that's on Conor's is number 1. Eric, it might be number 1 on yours too, is travel. Come on now.
Travel is a nice one. I definitely miss that a lot, but here are my top 4. Number 4, being able to distinguish a Saturday from a Wednesday. The days just bleed into each other, and I can't. I don't know what day of the week it is.
Is that still true? Do you find?
For me, it is, because in Ontario we still can't get haircuts, as you can tell. So Ontario isn't quite as forward-thinking and advanced and progressive as Quebec when it comes to the pandemic. So yes,
I'll tell you, Eric, as 1613 area code texter wrote to Conor and I this morning on the show, you can buy pot legally, but you can't get a haircut.
It's absurd. It totally is absurd. I feel so bad for the guys who cut hair.
And number 3, he said yes. the hippies have won.
Yeah, the hippies won.
Yeah, well, we get who we deserve when it comes to leaders. Okay, number 3, sneeze without getting arrested. I think that just speaks for itself. I mean, I go to the grocery store, I have a sneeze coming on, I run out of the store. I don't want to be handcuffed. When you sneeze, it was like farting, and before the pandemic, everyone looks at you funny.
Whoa! Listen, first of all, your weight. I mean, you could fart. What do you mean? But here's a question: What if you're in the grocery store, and you have a sneeze coming, and you're wearing a mask? What do you do?
Oh, I sneezed in my mask at work. I did it last week.
Yeah.
I was going to the kitchen. I had to sneeze. So I'm like, well, I'm not taking it off. So I just sneezed and breathed it back in. It was really weird.
Eric, is that your method too?
I feel like, yes, I don't have a choice. It's the more unpleasant option, but it makes everyone around me feel comfortable. Look, in a society, there are rules. And what if have to play by the rules?
What if there's no one around?
Nope. If I'm indoors at someone else's place of business, then I do the best I can to unfortunately follow all the rules, and that's just one of them.
Because I'm removing the mask. I remove my mask and I sneeze into my arm, as I was told to long before the pandemic. But I don't. The idea of sneezing into a mask, it sounds totally insane to me. I'm like, what am I gonna? I'm wearing a surgical. I'm gonna have it's a surgical mask. So what? It's gonna have a wet spot on it now, and I'm gonna walk around like that. I don't know. I can't do it.
That's a really good point. Plus, I have this beard, so it's going to retain more of the sneeze, which is disgusting. Okay,
that epic beard and face mask is a killer combo, by the way.
Thank you. Number 2, not as much Zoom. Really, having far fewer Zoom sessions. Apart from this podcast, just basically no Zoom. I'm tired of looking in my face. A good hair day, bad face day. Enough is enough. I hate Zoom. My eyes are tired. And number 1 on my list of top 4 post-pandemic activities, licking the faces of total strangers. Number 1 on my list.
Stay away from me, you monster.
I love that this was Eric's idea, and I think it was like 3 of his 4 were like not serious at all.
I love it.
They were not serious, but I hope they expressed an overriding sentiment that I want to get
Levity.
back to something normal.
So, guys, we'll see you all at the anti-mask protest on Wednesday.
Yep.
It's enough already. It's time to get physical. Take this.
Let's make some noise, boys. Let's make some noise. Some all-dressed noise at the protest.
We're not, by the way, we're not being serious. We won't be. I don't even know if there is one on Wednesday or ever, but we won't be there.
All I'm saying, guys, is this piece of metal, since I got vaccinated, is sticking to my neck. I don't know. It's just sticking.
Can you explain this?
Yeah.
Explain this. Explain this.
What?
I'm
Well,
pretty
I can't
sure.
hear you.
I'm pretty
My
sure.
brain
a
doesn't
key-
work anymore.
Hey, Connor, you're
Hey,
really
anyone have
smart.
an answer for this?
Isn't a key brass? It's not metal, is it? Isn't it made of brass?
Keys are not magnetic.
Yeah.
No,
okay.
well,
no.
the
Right.
vaccine
Yeah,
turns
they're-
everything metallic.
That's
Turns
right.
everything, but plastic turns to metal with the vaccine.
That's
All right.
awesome. All right. That's
Rock
enough.
on. We'll talk to you in a couple of days.
Peace.
you.
Habs win game 2.
2-1.